Good evening, Patrick here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Eight Questions with. And tell me if you heard me say this before, but it is a chilly evening here in southeast of Michigan. We are actually supposed to get some snow today. It's going to snow overnight. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a whole lot. We've gotten a few flakes, but nothing really substantial as of yet. So that's good. That's good. Well, welcome to the show. Tonight we will be welcoming in another podcast, Social Leopard, and which is run by Bea and Beth, Beth and Bea, and they are two vivacious young ladies who actually care about our mental health. As we know it, our mental health, the last 10, 15 years has come to the forefront in this country as it's a perplexing thing. It's either a lot of it has been hidden away or a lot of it has been being used as a crutch. Um, I and they're it's just like anything else. Um, my mental health, as I know it, how I look at it is, it's pretty bleak. Um, but it's just that's something I guess I have to work on, try to work on. I guess the key thing is to this, and I'm sure the ladies will tell us this, is do you want to get better? Do you want to improve your mental health? How much does social media play into it? I haven't been affected by social media aspect. I've been affected by real life, but I've seen lots of people having mental health issues being caused by social media. Tremendous amount of people. For as lot as good as social media has done a tremendous a lot of damage as well. Because really, there's it's just hard to control it. Hey, what's going on, Scottish? Glad you're here. Glad you're here. So this is gonna be a little bit of a different show for us. So we're going to be talking about mental health and the podcast Social Leopard, and we're going to go ahead and discuss how that has come about. The ladies have just completed their first season of their podcast, and they are currently working on season two. So they have done very well for themselves so far as far as getting their podcast up and running. As you may know, a lot of times podcasts are hard. Podcast doing a show like this, it takes it's a lot more than just plugging in a microphone and lighting and go. It takes a lot of thought and you have to put a lot of thought into what you're doing and who you have on the show and what you guys talk about and keep it diverse, keep it different, keep it fresh. Um, this week we kept it pretty fresh. I think. I mean, this is the first for us. I think we've only had one other couple that have come on and talked about social about mental health, and that was Crystal and oh boy, she's gonna kill me now. I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that was gonna happen. I'll get it. I have not seen them in a little bit since they did their. Well, you know what? I'm not. I bet you they don't come back and say, "Well, who's my partner's name?" Uh, they they haven't probably come back and watched the replay. Um, but this is only the second time that I've actually had someone come onto the show and talk about mental health. And think about that. I have over 530 episodes, and this is only my second one. Probably could do better along that line. Uh, Hi, Bredezel. How are you? How are you, Bredezel? I I don't know how to pronounce that name either. So yeah, of course, we also had the lovely Jenna Clark on our show yesterday. Singer songwriter based out of Florida. Tremendously fun interview. She got to sing some songs. If you go back and listen to the replay, you'll hear her sing. I believe she sings three, and tremendous voice and a very really nice young lady. And I really enjoy talking to her. And she's gonna be releasing a new record sometime next year. And when that happens, she said she'd come back and hang out with us and talk about it. Of course, Tuesday we started off with Carry the Nine. a punk rock band, punk rock pop, more like pop punk, I guess you call it, based out of Los Angeles. So we had them on the show, and that was a lot of fun as well. Good to talk music. Good to talk music. Like doing it. So yeah, so the big news is I'm gonna be putting this up tomorrow, but the big news is that I'm gonna be taking January off. Yours truly, speaking of mental health, he needs to take a break. So I'm gonna be doing that. I'm gonna be doing that on after the 30th. The interview that we have with the cast and crew of the Devil's Vortex. That will be our last guest until February. So yeah, I'm going to be taking a break. Got some things to do around here. Got some things to take care of, and it's just time. That's one thing too. We'll talk a little bit about with Bea and Beth is how to manage your time on social media. Uh, like you can't let it just dictate you. A lot of people, you see them on. I mean, there's some people I see on here all the time. I mean, literally all the time. Um, the notifications come through, and it's like, there's this over and over and over. They're doing it live. They're doing it live. They're doing a video. They're releasing a video. Their live streams are like 4 or 5 hours long. That's a long time. I to be on. All right. The doorbell has ring. Uh, I'm supposed to have a co-host today. I'm not sure if I'm going to or not, so that's why I didn't really breathe too hard on that. If it is her, that is awesome because then we'll be talking with Snow, also known as the Snow Leopard. But if it's our two ladies, then we'll talk to our two ladies, also known as Social Leopard. So let's see who we got and let's welcome them in. Okay, I think we are going to be solo tonight. Okay. Greetings, greetings.
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 Let me make us a tiny bit bigger.
Okay.
Okay. Ta-da! There we go. I wasn't quite sure. I had hoped that our friend Snow would be here. And I did not hear anything from her, so I just assumed that something has come up for her, so we will get her at another time. But for now, it's us.
All right.
And very nice meeting you. Very nice meeting you. Now, who's Beth and who's Bea?
I'm Bea.
And I'm Beth.
Uh, yeah. Okay, I definitely wanted to know. And again, I wanted to say a little bit like I didn't realize it until I did it. Then I realized that maybe I had overstretched a little bit when I asked you for pictures. I said, can I get pictures? And I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, it says, yeah, it really helps for the show, this and that. And I was looking at it from a point of my needs and not necessarily your needs. Maybe you weren't ready to put up your pictures as of yet.
It was
Maybe,
fine.
yeah, but small things like that matter, though, right?
Yeah. But we were happy to do. We had to force ourselves to put our best, foot forward. So thank you.
It was on our plan, Patrick.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
we are definitely going video and are in the throes of that right now.
Yeah. So it's helpful for us. Yeah.
Okay. So now will you be doing videos on this platform as well, or will you be using a different one?
Yes, we'll be posting video episodes to YouTube and on our Social Leopards channel.
Yep.
And then we will also be uploading the audio only version to most podcast apps.
Yep.
Our chat is coming in. I want to say hi. Hi to Sue and hi to Michelle. Thank you for coming in. We are talking with, of course, of course, anybody who knows this channel at all, I know you ladies didn't know this, obviously, but anybody who knows this channel at all knows that there's one thing about me, and that is I'm a cat lover. So when I saw the term social leopards, you know that was going to happen. I was going to have to bring them on here to talk to them. I didn't care what the topic was going to be. Anybody that names their channel after a cat, it's going to be all right with me. So now I guess the first question, I mean, to get it going, I guess I'll ask the most obvious question is why now? Why Social Leopard now?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So, first, I'll start with how we came up with social leopards. How about that?
Okay.
So, a leopard is a creature that lives a very solitary lifestyle. It is prevalent throughout the jungle, but seldom seen. So, the same is true of people who experience loneliness. And they're everywhere around us, but we don't notice them. From COVID forward and through a lot of conversations that we have had with friends and others and now listeners, we know that loneliness and anytime you go out on the internet and you read an article, I mean, loneliness is an epidemic in and of itself. And so we wanted to address that and create a community of people who are feeling loneliness for a wide variety of reasons and come alongside them, walk the path with them, offer ideas and practical guidance and or just plain old support.
Yeah, and I think people are afraid to admit they're lonely because I think it's still a social taboo. Nobody wants to admit that they're lonely because people are going to say, well, what's your problem? Why don't you, are you having social skill deficits or whatever? So I think that's, doing this is a way to normalize that feeling because all of us feel lonely sometimes.
Yes.
Sure. That's a natural human condition.
Yes.
Though I definitely think it went from being, it went from being casually lonely to, loneliness on steroids is when COVID hit.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't necessarily think that our sociability skills have come back together since COVID. I think in actuality, I think it's gone the other way. I think it's gone. I don't know if people really know how to talk to people anymore.
Yeah, and so to your point with kids, I work with children. I'm a school psychologist, and the rate of suicide since COVID has drastically increased. So we have such a huge need for, intervention for people to understand like what that can do to, not just adults, but to children.
Yeah, suicide is different these days, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I'm saying that because I mean, you got, you used to be there used to be that say stigma, like when you hear about people committing suicide, there was always that social stigma, like, wow, they just killed themselves, why did they do that? Why did they do that? And I actually started thinking when that got turned around a little bit, and that was when Robin Williams passed away. He was going to be very, very sick. He was basically going to be facing what's Alzheimer's, a form of Alzheimer's or whatnot, what Bruce Willis has. And someone had actually put this in I saw this in a song lyric, and they had the character portray Robin Williams. And at the end, he says, "I got to set myself free." And I thought that was a really powerful statement, to say, because I look at anybody that's over 25, age 25. I'd look at them, that's what they're doing. They're doing that to themselves. They're setting themselves free. Maybe they were just for various reasons. Kids, on the other hand, that frustrates me because it's like, you want to go to them and you want to sit there and say, listen, it's rough. I get it. We've all been through it. It's rough right now. Hang on. Just hang on. Go through it. Come through the other side. Give yourself some time to breathe and to explore and to engage with people. I mean, there'll be plenty of time to do the other thing in the future if you're so inclined to do so. But hopefully, through interaction with people and peers and whatnot, um, they will find that life is worth living, and hopefully find somebody to live it with.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we try to do is try to offer a little bit of hope and encouragement and some motivation. Um, a lot of times when people get into a rut of being alone, and there's a difference between being alone and feeling lonely, right? And so if the loneliness starts to set in, there are ways around that. And so we talk about that all the time and for a lot of different reasons. And we could have a different episode for the rest of our lives about the different things that,
Absolutely.
cause loneliness and the reasons for it. Um, there are different health conditions, but there are always ways around it. And if you can't interact socially in a real life environment, there are online options. Listening to a podcast like this or a show like this, you can interact on the internet, and that is a form of socialization. And
Sure.
then celebrating those small steps, right? When you are actually interacting with someone, even if it's via text, that's better than sitting by yourself and not interacting.
Yeah.
So,
And what's fascinating is that people have different needs, right? So not everyone is different as far as how much interaction they need. That was something that to me was fascinating. I thought, everyone's lonely at the same rate, but it's not true. Like, so somebody needs more, someone needs less, and it's all very personal.
Yeah. Yes. What what kind of how many levels do you think there is of loneliness?
oh man.
So,
Social anxiety, I think, is one of the biggest ones that we get the most feedback on. People who no longer feel comfortable in person to person interactions, wouldn't you say?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we did
I,
this one episode with the California Loneliness Scale. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's an old instrument, and it basically assesses levels of loneliness and gives you kind of like ideas of where you are and what you can do depending on where you fall on that scale. So,
I hear this more and more, and I think there's one aspect that we have to bring into play into this. And again, it's right in the headlines today, but it really has been a major factor now for many years as far as lonely goes. I hear so many people now say that, they say they don't do a lot of things they used to. Like, they don't go out to outings anymore. When they go to the store, it used to be a pleasurable thing. They walk around and shop. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are looking at other people with a side eye because they don't know that person, and that is our epidemic of gun violence. I
Right.
think it played a major role in why we have not been able to recover from COVID. Most of the time we've been able to bounce back, get going, but it seemed like there was just a ton of gun violence. Actually, you can go back to the recession. There was just a ton of gun violence going on, and even now, where people do not. I mean, they're lonely not because they're lonely. I think they're lonely because they're afraid to go out there and interact with people.
I absolutely agree with you. After we had COVID, there was some kind of a riot in our town here, and that was the first time I thought about getting training course on a gun, on having a gun. I had never purchased a weapon, but I have one now because I was terrified. So you're right about that. I think that's true.
I also took a personal
Mm-hmm.
safety course
Mm-hmm.
after COVID with
Right.
my daughter in law,
Mm-hmm.
and found that very helpful to just increase my feeling
Right.
of personal safety while out and about.
Isn't it interesting? I grew up in New York City back in the day, and it was considered a very dangerous city, but I never would have thought to, have a gun. I had other things like sharpened pencils and mace, but really, I mean, it was just significant that it was so, so scary to go out there. You don't know what you're going to encounter anymore.
I hear that
And
all the time. I hear that all the time. I never really felt that way at all. I always felt like I could walk anywhere, and I have been in some pretty nasty neighborhoods, but I have never felt fear from any neighborhood. Um, I never really felt that at all until I came to Detroit. that put the fur on my hair. I was like, plus two, I was in with my wife. So now it's just like it's not just me. Now I have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go to certain places, and it was just like, I didn't carry a weapon or anything like that, but you're definitely more aware of your surroundings. But that being said, it's a horrible, horrible way to live. That you feel like you can't walk out of your house without that gun, because that gun is really what it is. It's encouraging your loneliness, because now you're not going to be so, someone says hi to you and you're instantly looking for what's that mean? Are they looking at me? Are they gonna come get me? It can border on paranoia. It
It
can,
can, and that's not the way to live either.
Hmm.
But
mm,
um, yeah, that it is a slippery slope.
um, so yeah, that's now that you ladies, when you were growing up, what was growing up for you like as young ladies? Were you guys very
Oh
popular? Were
man.
you very outgoing? Did you get to go outside at night without your parents looking for you like every
Ah,
20 minutes?
so I grew up in an immigrant family. My parents are from Ukraine, so you can draw your conclusions. There was a lot of control in my life, and as I said, I grew up in New York City, so going out at night was probably not a big option. So there was a lot of fear and anxiety and just a lot of vigilance about what you were doing. I was riding the trains when I was a kid, and I was always extremely careful about my environment. So I had a lot of anxiety. I would say that later when I moved to the Midwest, I think I've relaxed a little bit more, but I'll never forget that experience because it was very impactful in my life. What about you, Beth?
Wow, I grew up very non-traditional, so kind of like an army brat. But my dad was actually a minister, and he went from town to town, city to city, and was a diplomat. So he would go to churches where there were problems, and then he would address the problems, and then he would pick us up and move us to the next church in the next town. So um, I spent a lot of my time not living in fear. We were usually in small to medium size cities, and I always felt safe growing up. And a lot of times my mom was like, be home at dinner time, just go outside and play and go out and do whatever and come back. And that was about how it was. And so I didn't grow up super outgoing because I think over each move as I aged, I started being more aware of the fact that, this was another in a series of moves that were coming down the pike. And so I kind of withdrew in my awkward years, that, late elementary, junior high school phase. And then I think the turning point for me was the summer between my 11th and 12th grade year when my dad up and moved us again. And I was so angry about that because I had my first love of my life. Hi, Brad, if you're out there. And I thought life was going to end. And I was kind of a little bit of shy person at that point. And I decided I was just going to reinvent myself. And I went and I joined the drama club and I joined the swing choir and got out there and was with a bunch of very creative misfits, and I never turned back. And my 11th and 12th grade years were super happy. And
Awesome.
yeah, I think it was a good switcheroony, and did a good job there. So, yep.
Now, what have you taken from what have you taken from those years and applied it to your years today? What do you use from that you gathered from that till now? Do you
Taking
work?
risks,
Are,
I
are
think,
you
is
in,
the
are you in
answer.
a church as well? Do you work in the church?
No, I do not. That was my dad's job, not mine. So, I'm a spiritual person, and I, but that was his job. I am actually in the healthcare industry, and administrator, and have been for a good 17 years now. Going on 18,
Was,
and
was that what happened? What happened to that gentleman? Was that a shock to you?
oh, he was he was seen out on driving around the square the following weekend with another girl. That was not true love. I know. I was heartbroken, but I survived and lived to love another day.
No, no, I was gonna ask you about when you heard,
Oh,
we're talking about loneliness
oh,
and this part. I mean, did you speaking since you work in the healthcare? I was wondering because again, it goes back to like here you go. Again, this is interesting too. You had that guy who got killed in New York, the insurance guy, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that as being a member in the health community, what kind of what kind of emotions did you get from you and your peers? Was it, or did you get any because you couldn't relate, you didn't know who he was, so you couldn't develop any feelings. But what was your reaction when you heard that that somebody like that could get shot?
shock and
And
sadness, and that's about all I really can say. And then to find out that it was a young man who seemed to have everything going for him,
yeah,
that was 2 lives just wasted.
yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about that, because I actually dealt with those people too, and it's just like I was like, wow, that's not him per se, but I've dealt with the company before, and it's one of those things where it's like you again, it's like you want to go out there and you want to get these people. Like to me, it's like one of the things that I really appreciate about a lot of hospitals and a lot of healthcare professionals. I know there are some doctors that actually get out and they actually get out and they meet their patients and their families. I know they do at the University of Michigan. Twice a year, they have a big meeting, and then the families come, and then they have interaction between the team, the doctors, and the nurses and the public. And it's really helpful and really beneficial. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to see what real quick what your feelings were about that. But now you're both out of high school, right? So you're both out of high school now that you both went to college. Now, do you feel like were you prepared for college?
I mean, as best as you can be. Like, I mean, what do you mean specifically?
Well, there's a lot of things, like you go to like a lot of times you see it every year in September, October. You see a lot of damage being done for freshmen. I know a lot of my friends would sit there and say, their goal wasn't to graduate. You sit there and say, well, what are you looking forward to at college? Now you would think to graduate, but it seemed like a lot of my friends said, get through my freshman year.
Well, I'll say so. My high school was hell because my parents were, as I said, immigrants. We were not very rich. We were okay. And all the people that I went to school with were well more prepared than I was to go through the American experience. English was my second language. So it was hell for me. But when I got to college, I went to an all girls school and a small school in New York. So I think I was in my element. I got through all the horrible years and I had a really good time. Except I missed the whole developmental experience of interacting with men. So I think that was, a problem. Perhaps. I don't know. What about you, Beth?
Oh, I had a good time in college, actually.
What?
A little bit more socializing than studious, maybe. Might have been a little bit of an issue. Um, and
You do know that leopards take their prey up to a tree, right?
That's what we were doing.
That's right. That's right. And I went to the same school as my boyfriend at the time, so
Oh, wow.
that's how
Fun.
it went.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you, an interesting story, and it kind of relates back to the topic of loneliness. Is my eldest son went off to college, and he could not wait to be independent and living in the dorm, and he thought that was going to be all that and a bag of chips, right? And then within about 8 weeks, all of a sudden he kept finding rides home for the weekend, and he would never really talk about it in the early days, but I found that he spent a lot of his weekends at home. He was about an hour and a half away, so it wasn't like long distance. And finally, the following summer, he said, that first year at college was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. And he says, I got really, really lonely. And that's why I would always try to manufacture reasons to come home for the weekend. And he said, I just didn't know the meaning of what it felt like to be home until I was away from home. And so, I wish I would have known that earlier on, but,
It's amazing he told you that, though.
It was nice that he finally did share that, sure.
Yeah.
And, I do run into a lot of kids who struggle when they go off to college, especially those who travel abroad or are 8, 10, 12 hours away. And it seems really, really exciting at the time.
Right.
And then the reality hits and you are so far removed. Yep. And God forbid, like my daughter, you get a terrible roommate assignment where, the boyfriend's coming in and spending the night and you're kind of left not sleeping well, or there's just arguments or parties or whatever that you're not prepared for. And it's hard to cope with those kinds of things. And it'll cause a lot of kids to, second guess whether they should even be going to college. Or worse yet, the ones that started out having to do it remote during COVID, and then they were asked to move on campus later on.
To your point, so my daughter started half of her freshman year during COVID, and she, after that first semester, came back home because she said, there's nobody on campus. I'm just by myself. So yeah.
I think this is there's a lot of things that it just seems like maybe we're overrun. Maybe we're just something we don't it's something that, like, well, I got through it, which is different. When you hear some kids, when you hear some 8 or 9-year-old kid, take that extreme step and you find out that they've been bullied, man, it's so heartbreaking, because it's like you want to go there and say, listen, everybody gets it. I don't know anybody who doesn't get pushed around at some point. Anybody. It just gets passed along. It gets passed along,
It does, but I think back in the day there was a way to deal with it, and these days they have so many rules and regulations that almost like, they're too many, that it's so micromanaged and so like controlled that, like, I don't know. I don't think there's a good way to deal with it. Like, schools are so constricted, they have to take all these, the documentation, who's bullied, who isn't bullied, and they have this little procedure they have to fill out, and it just, no one's happy at the end, right? So
no, it's frustrating too, because it's like it's all can be fixed, it really could. It can be fixed pretty simply, but it never will, and it continues to go, and it continues to grow. But
how would you fix it?
Me?
Yes.
Honestly?
Yeah.
I would actually repeal I would repeal the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
You want safer schools? Start there.
In general,
and also enforce the death penalty.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
That way, when you're sitting there and you're thinking about being stupid, and you're thinking that I'm 18 or 19, I'm invulnerable. I'm invulnerable. And then all of a sudden you find your buddy from down the way is going to get the needle because he shot up a party or something, and he's going away for forever. I don't know about you, but I think the death penalty is a tremendous deterrent. I think it's a tremendous deterrent, and the way that I know a lot of people now, back in the day, they worry about it because the technology generally wasn't there for the death penalty to be effective. It wasn't. There's been too many people who have been found out that they've been innocent and they've died or spent years in prison. And you got to take care of those people as case per case. But today's world, the technology is there, so that the mistakes that are happening on that level are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They're finding you out 30 years from now. They're finding you, and they're proving it. It's you. And you don't really see any. If you think about it, you don't really see a lot of those people coming out of that. Like, oh, well, you thought you got me, but I was really innocent. Not really. You're finding out that a lot of times when people say, "Well, we caught this guy. He did this, 20 years ago, and we got him on his DNA, and we got him on his blood," they're going away forever. The technology that's there now is to enforce the death penalty, which is a deterrent. It's not necessarily. I don't look at it as a punishment. I think it's a deterrent. I personally don't wouldn't mind either. And to me, it's like, okay, there's either you could do it that way, or you could do it the other way, and that is solitary confinement. To me, it's like it's if you take somebody's life, I don't see how we coddle that. I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to be a punishment for that. You have to, but think this. I also think that it is necessarily everybody's fault about that. That guy grabbing his gun and going to shoot that guy. Well, wow, he didn't have a criminal record before that. He was able to get a gun with no problem. How did he do that? How did he get his gun so easily? Did he steal from his parents? Did his parents not have the gun locked up? I mean, the guy was 25 years old, but he still wasn't living there at home. So did they have a gun safe? There's a lot of ways that you can make our society a lot easier and a lot safer and a lot less lonely. But like I said, it's not necessarily all just the person squeezing the trigger. There's a lot of goes into it.
I agree. Yep.
We're talking about illegal immigrants. That's the Republican speaking voice. But they're always talking about sweeping them up and getting them. Don't let them cross the border. Well, can I tell you who's standing right beside us yelling the same thing? Mexico, because we give Mexico and their cartels that shoot up the country and cause all that illegal immigration. We supply 75% of those guns to those cartels that they get from here in this country. Anybody can get a gun in this country at any time. It's not hard at all. It's
Oh,
very,
that's
very
true.
easy.
Yeah.
And that's why we see the rise of kid suicide. We see the rise of child on child. Shooting their parents by mistake, shooting their brother and sister by mistake. We see tremendous rise in that as well. Uh, but that's what I would do uh, to slow things down. But since we know it's a fairy tale, um, I would think that I'm not sure what it's like in high school now as far as what a guidance counselor does, but I always felt like a guidance counselor, it would be really beneficial if they had like right after graduation or before graduation, maybe like the week of graduation, is to have that big thing, to have that big meeting, and then talk to the kids one on one about what's going to happen to them in freshman year. I can't tell you how many of my friends, that's what they said. I just want to make it through my freshman year because everybody's partying, it's just a madhouse. People going with their friends, you're going to all the college parties, you're going to the football games, your grades start taking a beating. A lot of times by the time you're hitting the sophomore year, you're really clawing just to even stay in the school while you're racking up that debt. Um, I just feel like that's probably the first and foremost thing I would tell kids going to college is get through the freshman year. There'll be time to party once you get that degree. But freshman year, just go to school. If you have to be on campus for a weekend, believe me, they'll find something for you to do study wise. Go for extra credit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
volunteer somewhere. Uh, a lot of employers, they look at that. They look what you do for social work. Like volunteer at a soup kitchen or tutor a student or something like that. There's all sorts of things you could do to get through that freshman year and not be lonely.
Right. And there are also guidance counselors available on most college campuses, including behavioral health services that are freely available to the students. It's hard to walk in the first time and ask for some help if you're feeling like you aren't sure exactly how to, cope, or you just need some maybe ideas as to how to stay focused and to not let the social side overtake the studious side. And it's very common, but it just depends on who you are as to how comfortable you are taking that step. But all college campuses have that those services available to the kids.
Why do you think? Why do you think we have a hard time asking for help?
Because we feel weak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
we should be able to
absolutely.
just handle it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
People don't want to ask for help, or they don't want to admit that they just can't handle it alone.
Yeah.
And or they're just not comfortable seeking help.
Or you feel like you're imposing on someone all the right?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah. I know after one of the stories that Patrick and I kind of briefly discussed before this interview was caregiving, and that's a very isolating experience for people. And I know that after my father passed, I was focusing all of my time and attention on two things: work and taking care of my dad, going down and visiting him. He was down in Florida, I was up in Indiana, and I was spending long weekends, full weeks down in Florida, trying to kind of balance both things and not really doing much of anything in between. And it became all consuming. And when it was over and my dad had passed away, I came back home and I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to process my grief. I didn't know. All my friends had kind of fallen by the wayside, and I was literally alone. I didn't have anybody I could call on the phone, girlfriend-wise, or anything.
I didn't know you then, I don't think.
Yeah, you didn't. We didn't know each other at that point, but and I didn't want to just keep crying on my husband's shoulder.
Yeah.
And it was probably the darkest time of my life by far. And finally, my bonus daughter, I don't like to say stepdaughter, she's my
Your
bonus daughter.
I like that.
She said to me, she says, Beth, you're not you anymore. You need to get some help. And I, of course, immediately said, I'm just fine. There's nothing wrong with me. And then after she went away, I had to admit, you're right. I am not dealing with something. And that was when I really started to process my grief and really started to get back to who I am and start to feel good about myself. And I did seek a little bit of counseling for a short period of time and help myself through that. And I realized, oh my gosh, I've got to start socializing. I literally don't have any local friends. I have Facebook friends. I have friends who are in Chicago and in California, but I don't have anybody here in Indiana, and I can't live life this way anymore. And so I got out there, and guess who I met? I met Bea. And we've been fast friends ever since. And that has been like the turning point for me. And, part of the reason that she and I, over a couple of glasses of wine, started talking about what we could do to, support other people. And this talk of loneliness and helping people and supporting and encouraging and motivating through it was born. So,
Yeah, and I'm going through the similar thing. I'm in the beginning, both of my parents live next door to us, and my father's going to be 90. My mom is going to be, she's almost 87, and she has dementia. And my father pretends that he can take care of her, but it's a very frustrating, bittersweet experience. I love them so much, but I'm trying to keep them in their home, but it's a lot of stress on me, and I have great friends, and I have to do a lot of psychological distancing sometimes and realize that they're safe and they're okay, and I have to stop imposing what I think their quality of life should be. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I learned about the self-care that I didn't do when I was caregiving for my dad, and when I went back through it with my mom, it was a much healthier and
Mm-hmm.
happier experience for
Mm-hmm.
me. And I found that I was able to process and work through the passing of my mom so much easier because I did lean on others and I wasn't afraid to share my feelings and be open and be sad and feel like I was a burden. You're not a burden. If you have good friends, they want to be there for you in your time of need. So it's just a very
Right.
difficult, vulnerable situation to be in, right?
One of my friends told me, he told me this. He says, you can tell who your friends are during a time of grief. It's just the way you could tell is who knocks on your door after 8 months to a year. Who are the ones, everybody knocks on your door after the first couple of weeks. After somebody passes, everybody knocks on the door. It's the ones that come knock on the door after 8 or 9 months or a year. Those are the ones that you want to hold on to. Those are the ones that are still checking up on you, making sure that you're okay. I've always done that before. Like I've had friends. I had a friend of mine named Chris, and every year I always made sure I always went to him and I always thanked him for the kindness that he showed all of us during Christmas and Thanksgiving when we worked in nightclubs and a lot of us didn't have any immediate family. Well, he made sure that everybody that in the club, our little club family, we all had a dinner and a present. And he took good care of us, and I never forgot it. And I remember when he came by. I remember when he sent me a note saying, "It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. Do you know you're the only person that has ever done that every single year? You have always come back to me and said thank you every
Mm.
every year. I never failed because it made such an impactful. It was so impactful on my life. Um, Caregiving, though, man, that's a do you get a lot of do you get more responses to that aspect of of non-socialization as far as trying to find socialization with caregivers more than more than loneliness or college or maybe a cracked marriage? Do you find it to be caregivers are the ones that are probably at the most risk of being the most loneliest?
I think there's the most guilt
Mm-hmm.
associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Carving out time for yourself when you know that someone in your life that you really do love is needing care, and finding that balance, like Bea was saying. I feel like um, that can be a delicate balance, and you have to realize that self care is essential in those moments because if you aren't the best version of your own self, then you can't really give your best care to
Correct.
someone else. And that can lead to stress and burnout. And sometimes, in severe cases, people are going to start getting maybe neglectful care or rushed and hurried care, and they're going to miss the things that they wouldn't see if they were the best version of themselves.
Yeah, there's a high rate of suicide for caregivers, actually. So I remember a couple months ago, I had the social worker come in uh, to my parents' house because my mom, with her memory issues, and she needed physical therapy. And this lady says to me, she's like, "Make sure you give yourself self care because this is so much for you." And they don't have any other friends. I have a brother who lives in India, lives not too far from us, but he's busy with his children, so it's just really me and my husband that take care of them. And it's a lot. I mean, they're safe. They have Meals on Wheels. They go to church, but every day, if not every other day, I visit them. Or now it's gotten to the point where I'm taking them, to get their clothing, to go to their doctor's appointment. So it's quite a lot. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard dance to go through. I it's my mother-in-law. She got Alzheimer's, and I remember the first time it happened, we thought it was just a mistake, and then it happened again, and it was like, well, and then after that, the neighbor called and said that and her mom her parents lived about 300 miles away, and their neighbors calling us saying, "Yeah, could you tell Lori Ann that they knew her parents this week. We caught Lee walking around without any supervision and whatnot." And I think what was really frustrating for us at the time was the fact that, and this is something that you probably don't hear too much about, but this happens. He could have took care of her so much better, and this was really, really made me angry about him. Is that it's like it's funny is that he had her brother or her dad and her mom both, they both had extended families that when they were passing away, they were dropping their inheritance to the next brother. So by the time it got to my father-in-law, he was worth up $1.2 million. And he's sitting there going like, well, you got this money, why don't we put her in the best place possible? And for him to sit there and say, I got this, I can take care of this. It was the most frustrating thing. That was probably the most frustrating thing about it. It was like, I mean, my greatest fear is to have my neighbor call up and say, yeah, they're out there looking for they're out there looking for her mom right now. And they live in a wooded area in mid Michigan. We're not talking about a city, where anybody could see her. We're talking about in the woods where it got snow and rain and coyotes and wolves and shit like that. And it's like, much less, much less terrain. And she didn't dress very, how that goes. They don't dress very well. And it was like holding our breath. And and you think, we're gonna get that phone call. We didn't. He finally put her in a hospital, and I'll be damned if she didn't last another 2 years. She was
She
sick.
got good care.
She did. She
She
got
got
sick.
good care, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. She got sick. It was really weird. So she had Alzheimer's for the last 6 years of her life, and it was weird. It's like you never sit there and say, well, and you never look at Alzheimer's as a friend, but you're going like, okay, in this case, and this is something we talked a little bit too, is that my wife got sick. She got sick with a mixed diagnosed case of ovarian cancer.
Oh, God, I'm
And
sorry.
yes, and I got to watch that for 2.5 years. So sometimes stuff like that, it will, as much as we like to sit there and put on a brave face and say we can overcome this, there are some things that quite honestly that just cannot. I
I
mean,
agree.
you look at Robin Williams. I mean, look at him. There's nothing coming back from him. Look at anybody who has Alzheimer's. There's nothing coming back for them. People have cancer that are stage 4 and they're dying.
Yeah.
You can't walk in there and say, "All right, troops, let's get rallied around." You're not doing that, and it's a disservice to do that. But the one thing I'll sit there and say is that her mom had Alzheimer's before she got diagnosed, and her daughter passed before she passed. And so she was spared the pain of that, of the parent not have to bury they shouldn't be burying a child before before themselves. And that was probably the one singular moment I would sit there and say it was positive about the whole experience, was the fact that her mom missed it. And I was very grateful for that. But as far as the aspect, the other thing about caregiving goes, yeah, that's
It's a bit of a
rough.
thankless job, but it
is.
is also a privilege. What
It
do you
is.
call it? I think I've heard you call it a couple of things, but that it's almost a rite of
It is
passage.
well, yeah, I do think that. I mean, that I was kind of raised that way, and my parents are wonderful people. They took care of me, and I can't not take care of them, even though it's difficult, and I complain sometimes. And Beth has listened to it, and so has my husband. But it is what it is. We just have to make the best of it.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
guess,
we all go back and forth that way,
Yeah.
right? My mom knew how to
oh
push my buttons, and
well,
she would get me
well,
angry.
I would, well, I will sit there and say that my wife didn't make me angry at all.
Ah!
Not
Aw.
one, no, not one time did
Oh.
I ever get angry.
So
I get
she's
angry.
okay now?
No,
No, she
No?
died.
she
Oh, I'm
passed.
so sorry.
Yeah, she died. It took 2.5 years.
I'm so sorry.
So, and it changes you. Like I'm not the same person I was before that. Like, I was always a calm, cool person, and now I walk around and it's like someone said in the movie says that's my secret. I'm always angry, and I am. I'm angry all the time. I mean, before I was always a pacifist. I was always someone to look to settle a problem and help people settle a problem. I was always that way. Now it's to the point where it's like no one has ever done it, so I'm grateful. But there are times where I see, it's just like, if someone comes at you, you're not going to be pacifist. You just because you have everything, all that you have, that whole thing within you, and you're just looking for. You're like a volcano. That's really a good example. You're a volcano. You're just waiting for that one moment where you're just going to erupt. It's going to happen, and you just have to be ready for it, and try to. I've only had one time in 10 years where I've been that angry where I really could have just, and I walked away and just kept walking because I was scared. I was scared. Because you're just that pissed off. Um, but yeah, caregiver, that's a special sort of loneliness already because nobody can really do what you can do. Um, I didn't have a very good, her brother and her didn't have a good relationship, and they came down toward the lateness of it, and like what can we do to help? And it's just like there's nothing you can do to help. You weren't here yesterday, and and it doesn't help that you're here tomorrow. You should have been here, last year. And it's like you don't say that to try to make anybody feel guilty. You're just saying because that's how you feel. It's like, man, I really could have used your help a long time ago. But now that it's here, and now that we're looking at the end game, it's too late for you to come in and help. There's nothing you could do. It's already done. It's just a matter of making sure your loved one is in a painless, peaceful journey. But as far as doing anything, there's nothing more you can do. And I guess that's one thing. You have to accept. If you don't know this as going in as a caregiver, you're going to learn it really fast. Um,
Right.
but I just feel like too, though. I feel like that. Your son going home and being. We're talking about being alone. Like I'm alone in my house here. I have a pet cat, and I'm pretty much alone. I'm with you. I'm very much. I was hearing you talk about how you had nobody. I'm like that too. I don't have any human contact except for 2 hours a week when I go to the library, my local library, and I talk to a lady there, and her and I talk for 2 hours, and that is my human contact unless I go to the grocery store. I know that's not normal. I don't know what to do to get out of it though, because the other aspect you said was very true as well. Is man, you do hurt, and it does feel like you just want to continue to share that. But after a while, you start in the back of your head, you start thinking these people are going to get sick and tired of me talking.
Right.
They're not going to. When I started writing, I wrote a blog, and I was writing about what we were going through. And after she passed, I was still writing because it made me feel a little better. But I realized that I'm writing about the same thing over and over and over and over. And it's like it's raw and it's real to me. It's important to me. At the same time, I'm going like, man, no one's everybody's gonna get tired of it. No, I mean it's just it's human nature.
It is human nature.
You
And
know,
there's nothing wrong with that. And grief
No.
has no timeline.
Correct. So if you want to keep writing about it, keep writing about it. It's
uh,
don't blame yourself. Just you have to make yourself feel better. And if that's what makes you feel better, do it.
so how does Social Leopards come about though? Was it because of your guys' shared experience?
Yeah,
Did
I
you,
mean,
did you
yeah, so I work with, kids and sometimes adults that have a variety of mental health disorders, loneliness, depression, disabilities, parents that deal with kids with disabilities. And Beth works on the other end with the people that come into her, I guess, the hospitals that have the disabilities.
Yeah, well, my personal motivation is more coming from my own personal lived experience and through some volunteerism that I do on a website that offers free listening. And it's called sevencups.com. And I don't get paid to promote them, but I have interacted with hundreds of people, and there are literally two topics. The first topic is loneliness, and the second topic is breakups, and both are about being alone. And I'm like far and beyond every single conversation I have ties back to one of those two things. And over talking on a computer to these hundreds and hundreds of people, I realized that, what the internet is saying is true, is that loneliness is an epidemic. And so I think that was kind of part of the conversation. In fact, I had a situation with one of the individuals that I was talking to over this site, and I actually brought it to Bea, and I was like, man, I've never encountered anyone as lonely as this individual, and who has been this isolated, self-isolated out of fear. And so I was, we brainstormed some ideas, and none of them have worked, but I have actually like curated this 2-year relationship with this individual purely over a chat on a website. And I am literally that person's only friend because they just can't bring themselves to go out and socialize person to person. And I'm there walking the journey with that individual, just the two of us. And
it's got to be so
yeah.
frustrating to,
Yeah.
like we were talking about earlier, is a lot of people have a lot of fear about going out and doing things like
Mm-hmm.
street fairs and the movies. I hear a lot of people talk about that, going like, I like to, but I get nervous about going out because of what could happen. They're out there
Mm-hmm.
with their families, and all it takes is somebody in the parking lot screaming, and you got people running. And people are just they're just going to refuse to go out after that. They're just going to like, nope, nope, I'm good at home. I'm gonna make my house into a castle, and we're going to do everything that we need to do. We're going to do inside the house, or we're going to be seen where we're going to go places where, like, walk around the lake, walk around the lake where I can see everybody all the time. you know, um, not saying that for every single person, but the mentality of that is very high. And and when you got those folks on the streets, they already had, I mean, it's already rough as it is being homeless. I mean, it's brutal. Uh, but now you add on to the fact, I mean, like, at least you get a little bit of respite, right? Respite. But now you're not even getting that. And the stress is unbelievable. I just, it's sort of, I mean, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but when that first thing I thought of when they were announcing about that CEO guy got killed, the first thought I went through my mind was, how come it hasn't happened more? Because I know a lot of people that are very upset. They're very alone. They blame the medical system for their predicament. And you sit there and wonder, like, how come this hasn't happened more before? Because it really happens very, very. I mean, maybe it's our last restraint of our humanity. Like, don't kill the caregivers. but at the same time, it's like we're so overrun by a lot of corruptness, and people just don't feel like they're being heard, they're being seen, they're being treated, they're being talked to or talked with. They're being talked to, but not talked with. I mean, do you feel when you talk to people like this, do you feel like we're making any headway, or do you feel like we're sliding down the hill and it's only going to get worse, especially now that we have a new president coming in,
Well,
and
I think
you hear that you look at the social media aspect of it. That's absolutely insane.
yeah. What concerns me is the extreme shortage of people everywhere. Like there's such a shortage in all the healthcare industries, in the hospitals and the schools, and that really concerns me a lot. I don't know what you think about that, Beth.
Do you think it's a shortcoming? Do you really think it's a shortcoming though? Because
No, shortage of personnel, shortage of personnel to
I
do
think there's
that.
people out there that would be happy to do it, that would actually do it if they got the job to do it. But again, it's like looking at it's like you see a nursing home. You see the wages those folks get, those nurses get. I mean, you got oncology nurses out there that are making like hundreds of dollars an hour, and then you got someone there taking care of someone toward the end of their life, and they're getting paid like $12 an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always good and bad in all of the industries everywhere, right? So, I feel like um, quality of care is up to the individual and the people that are managing those facilities. So, you can find good care. And that's another reason that a lot of people do like to stay home instead of going to a facility. So,
Good care costs a lot of money.
yes,
I mean, you
yes.
really have to be well to do. So I think that's to your point. That's why people
Hmm.
do want to try to stay home.
Right, right. Yeah. It's more affordable to stay home most of the time
Yep.
and just get services on an interim basis.
Are you pro if are you pro end of life, the self suicide, are you a proponent of that?
I don't know that I have an opinion on that. I feel like um, do not resuscitate and those types of living wills are a good thing to have. Everyone has a right to say that they don't want to have extra help if they are in a situation where they're dealing with a terminal condition. That's about as far. I mean, I think it comes down to
Mm-hmm.
your moral and your spiritual
Mm-hmm.
beliefs as
Yeah.
far as it goes beyond that.
Yeah. My parents have that in their will, and I can't. I can't tell you that I could actually do it. If I was faced with it, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say that over on my husband's side of the family, they had to have there are four siblings, and they had to have conversations with them about which was willing to say go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and don't place the parent on life support because that's what the parent wanted, as opposed to not doing that. So you have to make sure that when you do establish a living will, that you have someone that you know will carry out and honor your wishes and share that with the healthcare providers around you.
Uh, yeah, so we'll just ping here. I'm gonna see if I know this is normally what people don't they know this isn't something that we normally don't talk about on the show too.
Yeah,
It's okay.
But yeah, no, I'm glad Michelle is here with us and listening. I appreciate it. It's a tough topic.
it
Uh,
is.
it really is. It doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah.
People tend to shy away. They tend to go the other way. When you go there and sit there and say, let's talk about terminal illness, or let's talk about, child safety in the schools, and or let's talk about, or any, or even. I tell you what really sort of sad for me, and this happened. This happened. It was it's opening the doors for somebody. It's a simple social grace, something that males get taught as a young man. You open the door for a lady every time, all the time. And it was just amazing how many times I see a man and woman get to the door at the same time, and the guy just doesn't do it.
Oh my
And
gosh, my pet peeve.
it's funny because I'm sitting there going like, and I remember asking my friend Catfish, he did that, and I asked him, I says, man, I says, why didn't you open the door for the girl? Because he was, like I was a little bit behind him, so I couldn't get there. And he goes, well, because they don't open the door for me. And then at the same time, they also want me to treat them as equal. They also want me to, they don't want to be treated any special. So I try not to do that because it's like if I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. Um, do you think that part of our loneliness? Think about this: our social isolation. Even when we can't even open the door for somebody without expecting without expecting to be snapped at,
You
because
made me
I've
think
seen
of
that too.
you made me
I've
think of
seen.
sorry.
Go ahead.
You made me think of something. This is a long time ago, and my I was pregnant with my child, and I travel for my job to different schools, and I carry a lot of equipment to test kids, and I was like 8 months pregnant. And I was walking to the store. This guy, the principal of the building, is standing there, sees me walk in, does not open the door with me, sees that I'm a pregnant lady with all this stuff. And I went into the office after him and I said, how dare you? I'm servicing your building. You couldn't even open the door for me. So, yeah, to your point.
Right. Did he offer any sort of like I'm sorry, or he just he,
Nothing.
wow. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I open the door if I'm there, and I'll open it. No problem. But it does seem, like some, like, like a, not opening the door, a car door, or or just small things like that. Or you go ahead of me, like, you got like you got 100 things in your cart, and there's a guy behind you with three things. They sit there and say, hey, go ahead, you go ahead. I mean, I'm going to be here regardless. it,
Exactly.
just- it seems like small norms like that are no longer just a norm. Now it's like, now it's an exception. And I think that plays into that social loneliness. But how much do you think hostility comes into our loneliness? Do you think hostility from social media and from that sort of, because social media is I think it's a great cause of loneliness.
I think that um, it is a lot easier these days to express an opinion because of social media, and I think that in itself causes hostility. The way that we behave as a society is very different than 20 years ago. When you're only 25, you may not know this, but when you're a little bit older, just a little bit, um, you know that things are not the same as when I was a young lady. I behaved differently than I do today, and people who are in their early 20s behave differently today. And I think social media has a lot to do with that. And it is so easy to anonymously spout off your opinion about any number of topics and get away with it. Whereas, when I was maturing, I had to watch what I said because it can get back to you. And I still, to this day, believe that my reputation is everything and my integrity and my honesty is everything. I'm never going to say anything unkind to someone on purpose because I don't ever want that associated with me. And it just seems like not everyone believes that anymore today. And I'm not sure beyond how easy it is to get away with it than, what the root cause is there.
I think it's really sad. this is sad too. We're talking about kids and getting kids to open up and talk and whatnot. And I find it really sad too. Like a lot of kids, like I said, it's a social media is both a curse and a blessing. I mean, there's some things that we're talking today. It's a blessing. This little show right here is a blessing. I don't know how many people will see it or listen to it, but I hope that whoever does gets something from it. I don't mind if 10 years from now someone drags up my name and sits there and says, "Well, oh, I see you did a show on loneliness on YouTube." Okay. Um, I just feel really bad when I hear someone get crushed for something they said on social media 10 years ago. It's stupid. It's some kid, 19-year-old kid, and he's immature and he's stupid. He says some things he shouldn't have said, sure. But I'm not one for bringing the hammer over his head either and saying, yeah, 10 years from now, 10 years ago, you said some racist things on your social media. How am I supposed to know who that person is? All I know is I deal with the person is how I'm dealing with them today, in today's world, today's moment, in this moment. If I don't see that toward me or my family from that person, if I don't see any sort of hatred or any sort of discord or any sort of argumentativeness, I'm going to take it for who they are right there. Because
Yep.
in 10 years, you could grow an awful lot. Someone comes up there and says, yeah, so-and-so said that, so-and-so's, that's 10 years ago. And I tell you what, like the Bible says, that he without without sin cast the first rock. When you can show me that your house is pure as clean as snow, then we'll talk. But otherwise, I don't think that you should be using social media as a weapon, because all I think it does, it just causes people to retreat even more so. And we're talking about trying to get people to come out of their shells. And I think sometimes when you go there and go hunting or you're hunting for trash, I think all you do is you're not becoming you're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem. When you go ahead and you start headhunting for people, regardless on what side they're on.
Right.
I mean, now if they said it yesterday and I saw it yesterday, then we'll talk. But from 10 years ago, when they're like 18 or 19 and don't know any better, I'm going to talk. I'd rather sit there and say, well, I'd rather talk to them today and see where they're at, because I'm sure that they'll be properly embarrassed by what they said. They said, I didn't know
Yes.
what I know now.
Right.
Lived experience
Yep.
means a whole lot. The me from 20 years ago is a completely different person than the me that sits before you today. I have far more compassion and empathy for other human beings. I can admit openly that I was a little bit more self-centered 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I was
same,
more
of
interested
course.
in, climbing the corporate ladder and
Right.
doing this and that and the other thing, and I probably have things that I can think of, over the next 5 minutes that I have some regret over, but all we can hope for is that we learn, mature, and improve when we make mistakes, and live life better tomorrow. And that's kind of, how I live my life every day. And we talk a lot on our podcast, and, we don't do a lot of this, kind of heavy stuff. Our podcast is more about the encouragement and the motivation and the ways forward than it is about the problem itself. But it is important to acknowledge and be honest about the problems that do exist. So thanks for helping
Yeah,
us, think a little
definitely.
deeper about this
Yeah.
today, Patrick. But at the same time, we want to make sure that when we do have negative experiences, that we take those as learning moments, and that we think about the people that, are being impacted, and that we show that compassion, because, it's kind of be kind to others is how I live my life every day now. And
Even to the
it's
ones
the
that are
only
not
way to
kind
be.
to us, right?
Yes.
We
Well,
try to be extra kind to them because we know
I
they're
try, I,
suffering.
I try too.
yeah.
I find myself, God, sometimes I find myself right in the middle of it. Like
Hmm.
sometimes I find myself looking down on me at the moment. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes I'll snap at somebody and I'm going like, man, that's not you. What are you doing? What the hell
Mm-hmm.
are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why, it's like, that's not who you are. You never used to do that, and yeah, I guess I just have no more patience for when people sit there and say, well, what do we do? What do we do? And you got done telling them the solution 30,000 times and they're still sitting there going like, what do we do? And after that, you just sit there and throw up your hands and say, I have nothing more for you. I can't tell you anything. The old saying, you can lead a horse to water,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
they won't even be led to water. They want to just stand there, stomp their feet, and say, "Well, how come it's not? No one's doing this all for me? Why is this
Yeah.
happening just to me?" And you sit there and you go like, "Man, I really like to sit there and tell you about it, but since you're not going to listen, I'm not going to sit here and waste my breath." And again, here we go again. We find ourselves just slowly drifting apart because we can't communicate. We either choose not to communicate anymore, or we just I or the fact that we have such a short-term memory, like we're all about ourselves, the self-centeredness. You think you were self-centered 20 years ago?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's
No,
a stage
no.
thing. Like, I think all of us are, because we go through stages in life and we can't help it. And then we learn that we should be different, and people show us how to be different. So I think everyone goes through that. I mean, we're
We
not perfect.
have you guys have looked through social media. I mean, look at that. That's what it's all about. It's
Yeah.
all about self-centeredness. It's all about me. It's nobody's giving back. It's everything. It's,
Right.
it's all about look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, what about giving something back from that? What about helping somebody else like that? Like Michelle's here. She does a podcast. She has a YouTube channel, and she's always giving back. She's always, whether it been by her various things she does on her channel, she gives back. She doesn't just take, take, take. Um, but speaking of your podcast, so let's talk a little bit of technicality of some technical aspects of it. So, who decided that, like, were you guys just relaxing, watching a little TV, how brainstorming? How did you get the idea of creating the podcast? Because there are a lot of them out there now.
Well, there are a lot of them out
Yeah.
there, but the research says that not many of them have more than 10 episodes
Yeah.
going for them. So we
Yeah.
made sure that our first season had 12.
Yeah, exactly. But it was about a year, I'd say a year of a conversation before we actually recorded. We talked about it for probably a year. Then we decided, okay, we've really got to actually do it. We're talking about it. Let's do it. So, yeah, it was a long time.
You're right. That's one thing that's really impactful for me was I agree with you about that. I think a lot of podcasts come out there and they drop off within the first 2 years.
Hmm.
They just, they'll get out there, they'll get full of fire, but unless everything's given to it on a plate, they just get bored. People get bored with it.
Right.
They,
Well,
and
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. I I feel like we're doing it for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing it for anyone else.
Right.
I mean, we're hopeful that others will listen and
Yeah.
and get some meaningful things. And yes, we are motivated and fueled by the feedback that we do receive, but we're in it for the long game. For people that help us build a community and hopefully we'll keep connecting with over and
Mm-hmm.
over again.
Yep.
And I mean, it makes our whole month one person just saying, I did that one thing and it
Right.
worked, and I
Right.
feel so much better now that I took that chance and I
Yeah.
went out and I did this thing.
Yep.
And now I feel more confident and I feel like I can go out and find a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So those types of things really, really mean something. And I know those aren't everyday occurrences, but for us to get that even during our first year, I thought was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, all the topics we've talked about are topics we ourselves have struggled with. So it's all based on our own experiences too. And I think it makes us feel better that we've overcome these things and we can help other people overcome them as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of you have to have a lot of confidence to tackle a social health type of podcast. I mean, you really do. You have to be confident. You have to be assured, which is probably why I've only done 2 in 540 episodes.
Well, that's so kind of you to say that. I mean, we never think we're such confident people, but we appreciate that feedback. It means a lot.
Yeah, season 2 is going to be really, really interesting because we're going to call it the season of perspectives. And so you're getting a little bit of a sneak peek into that. And we're going to be bringing some experts, but many who have some lived experience and others who have really, really struggled in the area of loneliness for one reason or another and talk about the experience of overcoming. And I think that's going to be really, really meaningful to our audience and help people see that it is possible.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier, there are as many reasons to feel or experience loneliness as there are solutions. And so each episode just is one tiny little snippet of that. And so we feel like we have several years ahead of us. And this is kind
Sure.
of our hobby that we hope to turn into our
Yeah.
retirement gig.
Yes. Yes. That's
There's,
the end game.
there's no reason why it couldn't. I mean, if there's, of course, it'll be it's a dogfight for that. I mean, you're probably your best bet as far as making money goes, as far as doing the pod, will probably be going on a regular podcast platform.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a YouTube, it'll be a really nice complementary piece to it.
Yes.
As far as that goes, I mean, you can, the more it really comes down to the more people you can get to come watch you or listen to you, the better. And again, we're talking about self-centeredness, and this is one thing I'll tell you right off the bat. Now, in fact, we can look at it right now. Here you are. You told your following on Instagram that you're going to be on the show tonight. So I hope that you did. You
I
did, right?
did. Yeah.
Okay. So here
And
we are.
Threads and that X place and Facebook.
And here we are. 90 minutes into the show, and we've had 3 people. I'm
Aw.
just saying, no, it's not your fault. What this is what I call traveling. Some people, some shows, some things don't travel very well. Don't get discouraged when you start your YouTube channel and you're doing this and you're 3 people in the room. Don't get discouraged, because you said something already that makes me feel like you will make it, and that is you're doing it for you. It's all that really matters. And that's the exact attitude I have every time I do my show is I don't care if there's 300 or 3,000. I don't care. I'm doing it for me first. So whether anybody's here or nobody's here, I'm doing it for me first, and not to depend on other people to come over there to lift you up, because chances are it's going to take a long time to do that. But I don't see why you don't have a chance. I don't see why you don't have a legitimate chance of talking about something that's so critically needed. I don't know any other. I only know one other. I only know that Jamie and Crystal, my 2 friends, Jamie and Crystal, they're the only other podcast out there, visual podcast out there, that talks about this on a regular basis. They do a show on Wednesdays from 1:30 to 3, and they talk about social health, mental health. They're the only ones I know. That's it. In 4 years, they're the only people I know. So I think the ground is. I think you have a real good shot. I think
Well,
you have.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we need more shows like yours, like Social Leopard, um, and with Crystal and Jamie. I think we need more of it, not less, but more of it. And it feels weird saying that too, because here it is. It's like, it's one of the things. Here we are talking mental health, and for some people that's just not, they're scared to come approach it. They're
Right.
scared to
Yep.
talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about loneliness, and they'll find something else to do, and it's like,
That's true.
it's there for you. It's there to help you and your family. There's nothing wrong with going ahead and listening to someone who's willing to give up their time and their expertise to try to help you out, and better yet, they're complete strangers. at first, after 2 or 3 times listening to your show, you're not a stranger anymore. And now you're a friend. You're a friend of
Oh,
the show. Yeah.
I feel the same, Patrick. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
that.
Now,
And we do distribute the podcast through
Hmm.
podbean.com. And so it is on Apple and Samsung and iHeart and Spotify
Yeah.
and all other major podcast apps, just so you know.
now,
Audio only.
yes, and soon to be have your. In fact, I was going to mention to you that your YouTube channel, the link there is broken, so you have
Oh
to,
no.
yeah, you
Okay.
have to go back there and fix that.
I
Um,
will do that.
as far as the second season goes, you mentioned about having guests on. When will the next season start?
February.
Yep. February 6th, 2025 is the opener. And then we will distribute each Thursday morning.
Okay. Now, will you be doing your show live, or do you tape record it and then edit
We
it?
are going to record and edit.
Okay. Okay. And that will be and every show will be how long whatever it takes, right?
Whatever it
Right,
takes. Yeah.
right.
We don't, usually we like to stay under an hour.
Yeah. Usually
Yeah,
30 to 45 minutes, I think, is what we've had in the past. Yeah.
yeah,
But this will be new.
we generally go about 90 minutes, which is about as far as you can go without losing people. As far as the replays go, about 90 minutes seems to be the best. And speaking of 90 minutes, that is
Mm.
exactly where we're at now. We have hit the button for the end of the show. Um, wow, I cannot thank you both for coming out. And you guys are doing T-shirts too, right?
I
No.
guess we should do that. Should we do that, Patrick? T-shirts?
Do you
If you
like
make,
that?
if you do season 3, do Social Leopards.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh, I was hoping I was hoping our friend Snow would have made it, because she too she's a gamer and she's a writer and she's an artist, and she hangs out with a lot of artists, and I was hoping she would get up here, and I call her Snow Leopard, and I was hoping to have her come up there and come out and hang out with us, but I don't know what happened, so we will see. We'll check in on her, make sure she's all right. Um, but definitely want to thank you, Bea and Beth, for coming out here and hanging out with us and talking about a subject that needs to be talked about more and more, and that is, social anxiety, mental health, compassion and passion, and I hope that people who listen to the replay, I hope that they'll will get something out of it, and I put all your social links down below, social media links. So if you can follow the ladies, they already have 12 episodes up and running on their website. So by February, we'll start getting new ones. Um,
That's right.
that's right. Real quick before we go, next week, because I didn't get to do that beforehand. Next Monday, the 23rd, we will be welcoming in Jerry J. White the third, and he is from the Bronson Creative, and he will be here on the 23rd at 8 o'clock. Well, I don't know. He's a filmmaker, and we'll be talking about him and his creative, and various friends put together movies for us to watch, all sorts of action and adventure. I'm sure there will probably be some Charles Bronson talked about in there. You do know who Charles Bronson is, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not that old. Okay. We will be off on Christmas Eve, Christmas, and Hanukkah. We'll be back on Friday the 27th with actress Juliana oh gosh, me and the names. Julia uh, Elkahomova will be here with us.
Wow.
I'm sure I'm sure I butchered that name. And then our very last show of the year, 2024, will feature our good friend Gabrielle Westwood. She is like me, as a big Haley Bennett fan. We're Haley Bennett fans. Um, she'll be here along with our friend Jinx, and also film director Joss, and we'll be talking with the cast and crew of The Devil's Vortex. Mm,
Awesome.
yeah. You like to get scared? Devil's Vortex, calling your name.
Only if I have people around me. I can't watch scary movies alone.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
What is do you guys do movies a lot? Do you guys go out to the movies a few times a year?
Maybe a
Yeah.
few times a year.
Netflix and
Yeah.
Hulu and all of
Yes, we
those
have all
other
that.
on demand are killing
Yeah,
the
they
cinema
are.
industry, aren't
They
they?
Yep.
are.
Yeah.
I go to the library. I pick up movies there for a quarter a piece. So I go there and I pick up TV series for a quarter a piece. And I'm like, this beats me going to the theater and spending like $40 just to watch one movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you two stay right there for a second into the chat. Thank you again for coming out for the show tonight. We'll see you. We'll see you next Monday. Take care and stay safe.
Yeah, have a nice holiday.
Uh,